Okay, so we are continuing to update old Disney animation to live action.
Yes.
And lately they've been trying to do the whole, oh, this is the stuff you haven't seen, and this is the story in a way that you don't know it yet, and all that bullshit. So they decided to try to do Cinderella just as is. So let's see how this worked out. The reviews are really positive, apparently.
Yes, very much so.
I didn't read them. I don't know if they're like, positive for the material or like legit positive, but I'm sure costume and production design nominations are in its future.
Guaranteed.
Doesn't matter how early it is. It's one of those. Now, okay. There's this is normally when I go through the plot, but no need, right? So
this is literally my favorite Disney movie of all time, so yes.
Yeah. And they gave it to Kenneth Branagh, which I thought was a really good sign, because I happen to think that he is not only a fantastic actor, but also not only a fantastic director, but a fantastic director of adaptations.
Yes, definitely.
So this had some good things going for it. Despite the fact that he's been a little, he doesn't have the flair. He doesn't have the flair lately that he did when he was doing his Shakespeare adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
Like his version of Hamlet is probably the best Shakespeare adaptation ever, if you don't count The Lion King.
Yeah.
And he got an Oscar nomination for directing Henry V in acting and directing and adapted screenplay, I believe. So. And, a bunch of others. But here, and then, lately he's done Jack Ryan and Thor, which are both fine, but it's not, like, they're not movies that show off directorial flair. Right?
No, not at all.
So, I was wondering if maybe he would kind of come back in a big way as a director, since this was getting, such praise despite being in line with this not-so-impressive lineup of adapting the old Disney animated movies. Well, for starters, we have Lily James, who plays Cinderella. You see what I wrote? That's what you're laughing at.
It is what I'm laughing at, and you're right.
Because I don't know her before this. I don't know if this is like her big thing now, or if she came from like TV or something, or just movies I haven't seen, or I saw and don't remember her in.
Maybe Game of Thrones, who knows?
But I kept trying to remember her name, and I was making sure I kept having to make sure I wasn't confusing her with Lily Collins, who was obviously Snow White and Mirror.
Downton Abbey.
Oh yeah, I knew it had to be TV. It just had to.
Yeah.
Which makes sense for the movies all after it.
Yep.
And we have an interesting going into this. I didn't know anything. Like I was like, there has to be people in this that I know, but off the top of my head, I don't know anything. But then I remember the evil stepmother is Cate Blanchett, who is revisiting her inner Hepburn again, in some cases.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll get So. I was really hesitant about this because I had heard about the approach being like more or less kind of a straight period piece approach, which if you've heard, I don't know if I've had to review that many or not.
Not on camera, you really haven't.
Okay. I should note that I have an extreme displeasure for the costume drama. It's basically its own genre. So I was a little concerned, and we had 1998, I want to say, Ever After with Drew Barrymore came out, which is basically the same thing. And that it's just not a genre or territory that gives me a slight interest at all, really. There are rare ones every now and then, like Atonement. Atonement is awesome.
Atonement is awesome.
But for the most part, not really. It's also worth noting that one of the stepsisters is Holiday Granger, who basically is now making her living in strictly costume dramas. Yeah. And I'm sure this isn't the end for her either. But another issue here is, and I know this isn't the movie's fault, I know. There's only so many things you can throw at a movie that aren't its fault before you realize the criticism is pointless, but this is interestingly timed since we just had Into the Woods.
Yeah.
Because there were complaints, I guess, that for some reason, apparently, back when it came out, a lot of people went into the Woods not knowing it was a musical, and it pissed them off.
Yeah, big time. I had to deal with a lot of walkouts.
So this was basically, I guess this is what they were looking for.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's the one segment of Into the Woods without the music. So, and even has the same appearance and everything, really. And you just, saw that I wasn't, Into the Woods' I'm certainly not the president of Into the Woods' fan club or anything.
No, not at all.
And it doesn't help that I know, okay, look, I understand that I am always, whether they're good or not, I'm always defending the concept of remakes and retelling a story, because people are always quick to jump on, the whole, this doesn't need to happen, this doesn't need remade, you stop messing with great things, because that, for some reason tarnishes the good name of the original, even though you can just not watch it, I don't know, but...
Yeah.
And it's always interesting to see a story you love through another director's eyes with other people that you know in the parts, that you know and love. And just see it through another person's vision. But this is a particular story to where I was never really... The Disney movie, the animated movie, was never one... I grew up with a lot of animated Disney movies, and I fell in love with a lot of them. That wasn't really one of them. Like, it was really late in life when I finally saw it, and when I did see it, it's just another one of these. That's all it was to me. So, this is not exactly a story that I get totally, enthusiastic about when I hear it's being done again. So, like I said, there was Into the Woods, there was Ever After, and there's so many movies that just kind of take the, vague concept and do it, and sometimes subtly, sometimes not at all. I can't believe I'm about to say this on camera in front of the internet. A Cinderella Story with Hilary Duff and Chad Michael Murray.
I dig that movie.
I kind of like that movie.
I don't care. I dig that movie, actually, a lot. Blame it on the fact that I used to watch Lizzie McGuire all the time.
I only saw it once, and that was when it came out. But I remember, I kind of liked it, so... this to me is kind of, I can't jump to its defense in this regard the way I would other movies, to where it's not exactly a story that felt like it needed to be told again. So, I don't know, because for a while there's really nothing to the movie. It's just telling the story again, and it's taking you through everything you already know. Obviously, the mother dies of period piece disease. She's not the only victim of it.
It was Haley Atwell, by the way.
Yeah. And obviously, period piece disease is, if you ever watch a period piece / costume drama, people just up and die in those. I mean, I know, it's the times and like all kinds of stuff was going around, medicine, etc. was not...
People die in the woods.
But, yes, people just up and die in period pieces. And eventually, when it gets to I cannot believe I'm saying this, Helena Bonham Carter saved this movie for a little bit, who was the fairy godmother, which I learned at the very last minute, and I thought it was a really weird choice, especially given Herman Brandt's backstory.
Yeah.
And her, recent breakup with Tim Burton is making things look a little fishy, that she just happened to work with Brando again recently. But we won't go into their personal lives. Let's look at the project that they have made. She really brought a life to because the movie was incredibly dull up to this point, just going through the same stuff and just not doing anything new with it whatsoever. I know a lot of people are taken by Blanchett's performance, and just the fact that she's here in general tends to, be attention-grabbing. But
she's good.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just wasn't into this for a long time. But when it came time for the big, the big moment in this story, I was thinking about this the whole time, and now that I'm in front of the camera, I still cannot come up with a better term, so I just have to say it this way. Branagh did not drop the ball when it comes to the ball.
No.
This whole scene plays out. This is when I was like, oh my god, Branagh gets to use his directorial flair again. It's great. It's wonderful. This is like, yes, this is what I've been looking for out of Branagh since, the last time he directed a Shakespeare adaptation, really. And it's great. It's magnificent. It's massive. And it's everything, like, it brings, like, the total magic out of an animated movie and into live action. I was going to say real life. Live action.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks great. But the problem is that that's just one segment in the middle of the movie. Once the ball's over and she loses the glass liver and all that, it just kind of goes back into what it was in before. So yes, it's a really, really great, magnificent sequence, surrounded by a really boring costume drama. Telling the story that you know from beginning to end that you've been being told since you could comprehend the concept of movies in general. So yes, but those transformation scenes are really fantastic. They almost make you forget about the really, really bad CGI animals that are everywhere. The mice and the lizards and the birds that they look like incomplete special effects almost, but it's fine because everything else was, well, so yeah, there's really nothing new that you've seen here at all, and it's very, for the most part, like I said, I really like that one segment in the middle, but everything else was just really, really dull, and it didn't help that this was just one of those times where it was the first showing in the afternoon, so maybe we brought it on ourselves, I don't know, but this is that point in time where people bring out their really, really, really tiny kids. Like,
yes.
Really, really tiny. That were basically there for the Frozen short in front of it.
Mm-hmm. You have to talk about that, too.
I don't really want to. The Frozen short is a waste of time. But the thing here is, there was, like, maybe this affected how I felt about the movie itself, I don't know, but do you ever go to, I doubt it, if you ever go into a movie with a lot of kids in it during the day, where that's pretty much the entire crowd, and for the entire 2 hours you're in the theater, it's like a blanket of constant noise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whether loud or whether soft, there's just constant noise all the time. And sometimes it got, like, as we're getting closer and closer, watching a really boring movie, obviously, the children will get louder. The less entertaining the movie is.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what happened. And it actually got to one point, people kept pulling their cell phones out, too. There were lights everywhere. And there was a couple right here, and the girls screamed down, "Turn your phone off." And eventually that couple got up and left. It reminded me of the second time I saw Shutter Island. It was the big scene in the room with DiCaprio, Ruffalo, and Kingsley. And a phone went off, and it was one of those cases where the phone goes off, but nobody has the balls to turn it off, who it belongs to. And everybody's kind of, looking in one direction. And there was one girl there who just looked at everybody and screamed, "It's not mine! Quit fucking looking at me!"
It's like we were watching 28 Days Later and my friend's phone went off in the middle of it when it was completely pitch silent at the point, and it scared some people so much I actually saw this lady jump.
And this was the big scene in Shutter Island, so it was nice. Luckily I had seen it the night before, though, so it was all good. So yes, I was not big on this, but it did show, okay, the good reviews are not baffling. I totally get why it's getting a lot of positive attention. I think it's just I just talked about this with Black Sea last week. If it was if this wasn't a genre that kind of already had me going like, this is just not really what I'm into, I probably would have appreciated it more. But I am glad to see that Branagh actually got to like do something in the role of the director, which hasn't really shown up in his last couple of movies. So this, because those two were definitely studio movies. I'm not sure how he got. I have no idea how he got Thor, but
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, but and it's not to say that those movies aren't well handled. It's just this is the guy that made fucking Hamlet. This is the guy that made the best rendition of Hamlet ever, and Laurence Olivier made a version of Hamlet that won Best Picture. But yeah, so it's like I said, people love it, and I'm not surprised. It's fine. So I'm just not one of those people.
I'm not gonna let you end this review without saying a couple things myself. Obviously, if you're growing up on the movie, which you apparently did not, really, when it comes down to it, there's a lot, musically speaking, about the movie. That's completely eliminated from this one. So if you did not want your Cinderella with music, congratulations, you get what you want. But if you stick in for the closing credits, you actually get your songs. 2 of them at the very end. Lily James says, "A dream is a wish your heart makes," and a very interesting version of Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo.
Which won the Oscar when Cinderella came out.
Yep. I loved it, but obviously I would, because it was very true to the original. I was happy with that. They didn't really change that much. Mm-hmm. There were a couple things here and there that I didn't really like. Meeting the prince in the forest first, yeah, okay. But I liked it.
That scene is basically the beginning of Serena. So I was like having non-flashbacks from watching that.
Wow. Certainly better than Maleficent.
Okay, I am looking at my notes for Run All Night, trying to figure out why I wrote the word look by itself. I don't remember doing that. I think maybe I was going to write something else. I don't know.
No. There's got to be a reasoning for this. I'm very curious.
Maybe it'll come back to me as we're talking about it.
You'll find out why look is now listed.
Okay, so, yes, our next movie is Liam Neeson's next outing already, which is Run All Night, which is him reuniting with the director of Non-Stop already. That didn't take long. So, this is another one I didn't know a whole lot about going in, but the basic plot is, it sounds like when you actually watch the movie, it almost seems spoilery to talk about what the plot is.
Kind of.
But last night, as I do after I see the movies, I go back and watch the trailers after I've seen the movie, and the whole setup's there, so everybody knows what happens. So, yes, we have Liam Neeson and we have Ed Harris, who are both criminals, and they're kind of on opposite sides of class now. Ed Harris, lives in the big house and is the big, rich, crime boss type, and Liam Neeson is now almost practically homeless. And they each have a son, and Liam Neeson's son is really, it's like the reverse of what it should be. It's nice and poetic that way, I guess. Yeah, I just used the word poetic talking about Run All Night. Don't take that too seriously.
Nope.
And his, Liam Neeson's son is Joel Kinnaman, who you know from that one show. The Killing, I think is what it was. And he was the new RoboCop. And Ed Harris's son is Boyd Holbrook, who was in a lot of movies lately. He was in Gone Girl and the Skeleton Twins, I think. He was a swimming instructor. Yes. Okay, good. Yes, and he was in Walk Among the Tombstones.
And ironically enough, he's in Walk Among the Tombstones.
So, Liam Neeson's son witnesses Ed Harris' son kill somebody, so he comes after him. And Liam Neeson ends up having to kill him, so Ed Harris comes after both of them. And what am I looking at?
You're looking at the thing underneath the skeleton
twins. Yeah, we'll get to that.
I know we will. That's the reason I wanted to bring it up.
Okay, so, this movie is perfectly fine, but there are a lot of things to say on both sides. The interesting thing about it is I like that setup immediately about how both our protagonist and our antagonist are pretty much criminals on the same level. So there's very, very few innocent people to root for in this. There's really only one innocent person to root for, and apart from that person, there's one other innocent in the movie entirely.
Yeah.
There is Joel Kinnaman's character, obviously, and then there's a cop played by Vincent D'Onofrio. Yes, this is how bad the people in this movie are. Our one good person we have to go to for some form of morality in this movie is played by Vincent D'Onofrio.
And very well, mind you.
Yes.
I very much enjoyed D'Onofrio in this movie.
Shock surprise, D'Onofrio was good. In other news, grass is green.
Water is wet.
Yes. Clouds are white. So, oh no, sometimes they're gray. I should have said the sky is blue, but fuck it. Now, another thing I loved about this, speaking of the sky, the title, I was not thinking about the title, but the title is actually to be taken literally. It's that setup that I really, really love in movies, especially ones that do it really well. I'm looking at you, Collateral. Where the whole thing is in the confines of a night. 16 hours to be exact. It's one of those movies where they're showing us the climax, and then they stop, and then it says 16 hours earlier, and then we circle back around. Which is not always the best technique to use, and I wish more movies would realize that, because, you know, it was like, they were having the shootout with Common in that building, and I saw you talking about, you looked like you were getting ready to go, but in my head I was just saying, wait a minute, we haven't seen that scene from the beginning yet, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's like you just kind of have to, there's really no surprises left, you kind of just have to wait for that. I don't know why people still use that setup, but structure was
It seems to work.
I'm still not figuring out why I wrote the word look down by itself. But still, there are a lot of, it takes a little while to go on. It's a little long. It's an hour 54. It could have been condensed a little more. But once it gets going and gets to that concept and takes off, it's a pretty entertaining movie. There's a lot of action in it. There's a really, really awesome car chase in it. That kind of evoked memories of Nightcrawler, you know, from a few months ago. Evoked memories.
Back in my day.
Where you see a car chase from the perspective of a car that's chasing a police car instead of the other way around. That's always a striking image to me. And then, for totally different reasons here, though. But, now, another problem is, despite the fact that it has really great action scenes, and, you know, it's just a really entertaining action movie altogether, it could have been improved a lot for one big reason. That's the editing of it. The editing in this movie is, not to get all technical and nitpicky and shit, but when you're doing a movie like this, that's kind of a big deal, especially when it's a little distracting. Because it has a purpose eventually, but there are two scenes back to back in this movie that are edited the exact same way, and it was kind of off-putting, because you're seeing things from, it's like one scene is happening and then another totally unrelated scene is happening, but they're eventually going to converge and like all hell's going to break loose. But the issue with the way this happens is there's not really a whole lot of build-up. Like, you don't gradually figure out that these scenes are about to converge. You pretty much know immediately if you've ever seen a movie in your life, because the editing is like nonstop. Like we see 10 seconds of this, and then 5 seconds of this, and then 5 seconds of this, and then 10 seconds of this, and then just, they're in a really big hurry to get to that convergence.
Short attention span theater.
And then, once the actual action scenes break out, it's one of those ones where, it's a pretty decent action scene, but yeah, half the time you can't really tell what the fuck's happening. Because it's cut so fast, and we're a little too close, and, you know, I mean, I know Gareth Evans can't direct every action movie ever, unfortunately, but it would certainly help. People need to at least take notes, come on. And that also kind of comes into play where it feels like a lot of scenes end abruptly. Like, it seems like a scene gets to just at some point, and then we kind of cut to something, and it's like, oh, well, I guess, I thought that was going to go somewhere, but I guess that's just over But no, it's not as, like I say that and you think, oh my god, this sounds like a fucking disaster. Like, it sounds worse when I say it than it is to actually watch it. It's not that bad. It's not like, the execution's that terrible. But it's a little distracting sometimes. Now, there is, another character in this movie that comes in at probably about the hour mark. And I don't know how to say this. I was discussing this last night. I'm not quite sure how to talk about some points I have here without spoiling things. Not like outright, saying spoilery things, but if you've seen the movies that I am... Because what happened here is, I felt like, while watching this, that this was one of those cases where it was like, the writer was writing this script while his TV was right beside him and he was watching other movies and he was just kind of lifting things from, like, his DVD collection. Certain scenes and the way things play out. And there are a lot of scenes that, brought back memories from a lot of other movies. So, like I said, I'm not gonna, like, outright spoil things, but if you've seen some of these movies, you'll probably be able to figure out the directions I'm going. So, if, you want to leave, like, now, this would probably be the best time if you've gotten enough, starting with, there is a pre-climax where he's going after Ed Harris. And in order to get crime boss Ed Harris, who is at the back of this bar, he has to get into a shootout in this bar in hopes of luring Ed Harris out. Even if you haven't seen the movie, maybe you saw my review of State of Grace, which is the exact climax to that movie. Secondly, the character I was getting ready to talk about. You probably saw in the, commercials and trailers and stuff that Common is in this movie. Academy Award winner Common is in this movie. Liam Neeson's in this movie, Ed Harris is in this movie, Nick Nolte's in this movie. But the only Oscar winner in this movie is Common. So, Common is a hitman that is hired by Ed Harris to go after Liam Neeson. And he's supposed to be this, ultimate super assassin type guy. But the trouble is that he goes around with this, I guess it's night vision or something, this giant distracting green light in his eye, and this really apparent red laser that comes out of his gun, to aim with, because that's what super assassins use. He's supposed to be, really well hidden and can just, kill somebody and then just, dispose of them quickly and, nobody knows him. He's like Anton Chigurh and just nobody sees him ever. So, in this crowded building, he's chasing Liam Neeson around, waving this laser around.
It's really distracting.
With his face lit up in this green light.
It's really, really distracting.
Like I said, though, without saying too much, I'll just tell you one thing. And like I said, you may be able to see exactly where I'm going with this. But if you watch both movies, it's unbelievable. Common in this movie is Jude Law in Road to Perdition. It's fucking ridiculous. It really is. I could go into specific detail, but good God. He had to have been watching Road to Perdition in his peripherals when he wrote Common scenes. Now another thing is, the guy, I didn't learn this till I got back, one of the co-writers on this, worked on Out of the Furnace. And there's a lot of Out of the Furnace in this movie, and that's what we were laughing about. Boyd Holbrook is also in Out of the Furnace as well. Yeah. But the funny thing about that is, Holbrook's first scene, he's in that office, and Liam Neeson comes back to talk to him. Before anything, I did not know he was the writer, and I hadn't seen the rest of the movie. Just this one particular scene, and I was like, wow, this little office here looks a lot like Willem Dafoe's office in Out of the Furnace. And then I just let it go. But then, there's kind of, the same vengeance vibe that Out of the Furnace had. But then the end of the movie happens, and there's, like, an identical scene. almost. Like, I can't... Like, surely he would have realized that he was writing this stuff that is directly lifted from other movies. Surely it goes through your mind at least once. And I know you can disguise it and say homage, but I don't think that's the case here. I think it'd be a little more... yeah. But having said all this, it's still a perfectly entertaining movie. It's fine. I might, like, down the road when it's, like, on TV or something, I might see it again. I don't know. It wouldn't be harmful to do so. Though it's not something that's gonna resonate by any means. Like, you know, that's the thing. I might watch it on TV someday and go, oh yeah, I totally forgot I've seen this movie. Cool. I forget what happens. Let's watch it again. But yeah, it's fine. It'll do its job. Like, if you go to see it, it's like, you know, that was alright. I'm gonna go on the rest of my life and probably forget this ever happened, but I'm perfectly fine with this experience.
It's not bad. I never said it was bad.
So, yeah. That's pretty much the extent of that. Okay, lastly, I don't have really any notes for this at all. I don't even know why I'm turning to the page. I wrote 4 things down. The second best exotic Marigold Hotel, the sequel to the movie that came out in May of 2012. I only remember it that way because we basically just watched the best exotic Marigold Hotel to kill time until Men in Black 3 started. And it was fine. Like, yeah. You know, I expected it to be, you know, haha, old people, this is funny for 2 hours to most people. But no, it was fine, and it was charming, and it has a really fantastic cast list. Holy shit. And then, of course, you know, they made the sequel. Like, when I first... And this was really interesting, because when I first heard that movie, of all things, was going to get a sequel, I kind of laughed it off, and I was like, that's probably one of those sequels that they, you know, they bring up, but then never actually, you know, comes to fruition, and people just forget about it, and it's just nice. It just lives its own life, whatever. But no, they went and actually fucking made this. And then I heard the title, the second best exotic Marigold Hotel, and my immediate thought was, well, that's funny, but I'm almost positive that title will be changed to just the best exotic Marigold Hotel 2. No.
Nope.
These motherfuckers are persistent, man. They not only did they make this movie, but they called it that.
Yeah, they did.
These, yeah, don't fuck with them. They'll stick to their word. That's hilarious. I love how pink and purple the IMDb page is.
Yes.
So yes, we are reuniting with almost the surviving characters. I think it was just Wilkinson that died in the first one. I make it sound like it was a war zone. The only people that made it in this one were the survivors from the last one.
Well, Dev Patel brings it up constantly. They're basically living there until they die.
So, and it's basically the same setup. You know, we have these fantastic actors inhabiting this hotel, and they all converge for, you know, some funny scenes as a group. But most of the movie is their individual stories. And just problems that, you know, arise in their life and deal with. Sometimes it's romance-based, and sometimes it's business-based, etc. The main... this one is really, really Dev Patel-focused.
Big time.
This one.
He needed something like this.
Well, you know, Chappie was just that. This actually... Remember, this actually came out with Chappie. We just got it a week late.
Yeah, I know.
So, and it's really funny because at our theater, they're right across from each other. So, the main focus here, for some reason, is that Dev Patel is getting married. So, well, okay, fine. There's kind of 2 things going on, but they're both Dev Patel related. We have him trying to put together this wedding and an engagement party, etc. And then there's another story where his rival, I guess, his Squilliam fancy son, is buying out another hotel and turning it into something bigger, and is going to basically be competition. So he has to deal with that while Maggie Smith tries to help him. You know, she's like the co-manager. And then we have the Bill Nye and Judi Dench relationship going on. There's a weird subplot involving an attempted assassination of sorts. Played for comedy, of course. And then there is another subplot where Richard Gere is introduced to the cast, who is a love interest for Dev Patel's mom, who may or may not be an inspector for the hotel. So yes, this is fine. It's fun. It's funny. The actors are still just as appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Judi Dench is really, really great here, just like she was in the last one. Like, Maggie Smith was the one that got all the awards attention for the last one, but I thought Judi Dench was better than her in it.
I agree.
But here, of course, weirdly enough, Maggie Smith was really, really close to getting an Oscar nomination for the first one. I think she had SAG and BAFTA.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think she's better on this one.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't remember much about her performance in this one, but here she really, really stands out. I don't know if it's just because she has more to do or what, but...
she's a central character for sure.
Yeah, that's also to mention David Strathairn is in this, too.
Yeah, he is.
He bookends the movie, really. It's always fun to see him, and I love, pointing him out excitedly.
Same here.
And speaking of the cast and their performances, I don't know how much truth there is to this or not, but this is just what I read. I remember recently, I don't know if he was doing promotion for Chappie or what it was, but he talked about, Dev Patel was talking about how he didn't like his performance in the first movie because he thought he was too over the top. Like, he wasn't, like, if he had gone back to do it, he wouldn't have been as, out of control as he was. I am almost positive he amped it up here.
Big time.
So, I don't know if that story is true about him not necessarily being proud of his performance from the first movie, because this one is really, really... But it's good. He's really, really funny.
Yeah.
Like, it works really well. Like, I wouldn't have... I mean, he had comedic moments, and, like, the first time we saw him was Slumdog.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I would have seen him as, like, a pure comedic actor when I saw that movie. And, his part on the newsroom, of what I saw. So, it's very interesting that he can do this, and it does actually work. Because this is the kind of character that could totally be grating.
In another movie, it probably would have been.
And in another actor's hands.
Definitely.
But, definitely. So,
yes.
He actually makes it work. He makes it work really well. Surprisingly, even the movie's over 2 hours. It's not one of those cases where it's like, oh, you like him, and then after a while, okay, he starts to work then. He keeps it the whole way through, and this movie's really fucking long.
Yeah.
For the kind of movie it is, it feels long, but it's it's actually 2 hours and 4 minutes or something.
2.
So, yeah, despite the fact that it does kind of start to feel long a little bit, and there are some subplots that are maybe a little more there than they should be, or there when they maybe don't really need to be at all. Yeah, it's still a perfectly, fun and charming movie, and everybody is great in it. And just, watching this cast work together, like, just seeing Judi Dench and Maggie Smith in the same scene is...
Watching the bicker is glorious. It just really is.
The only thing they're missing is Vulcan through from the first one.
Yeah.
So yes, Colin Firth would work really well in this too.
He was actually rumored to join the cast, and if I think the world would explode if he did this movie.
I guarantee he was going to be Gere's part.
I guarantee he would be too.
So
he fits better than Gere does.
As if it takes rocket science to figure that out. No, Gere's really good.
No, he is, but put on paper, he fits better in this cast.
The great thing about it is, I get the moment to say this real quick before we finish this. Richard Gere is like a humongous actor.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows who he is, for the longest time there, when he was in a movie, people would go fucking see it based on that.
Yeah, of course.
And it was great. And the thing about that, though, is he's such a movie star, he's actually really, really underrated as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he gets, with Chicago and Armitage, he had, award buzz. And, he won the Globe for Chicago and got nominated for Armitage, and it was great. But still, I think even now, he should really get more attention for how great of an actual actor that he is. Because I still think people don't quite see him that way. So, yeah. Yeah, this is fine. Yeah.
Everything was tolerable this week.
Mostly, yeah.
Everything was tolerable this week. If you don't say it, I will. So, we're going to start with Cinderella.
2.
I'm surprised the way you were talking.
And 2.5 for the other 2.
Okay. Alright. So ends another edition of AJ's Movie Review. Sorry about Hotel being a week late. Well,
we counted on that.
Yeah, I have a feeling it was going to happen. Next week, it's going to be an interesting one. We've got Do You Believe? We have The Gunman and Insurgent. So yeah, it's going to be comedy gold here, but it doesn't say much about the movies. Brady Versus this week, we're going to be going into tech support. So that's our cryptic comment there. And if you get that, then you're a super uber movie nerd. And you are our target audience. So next week, that'll be also, AJ's going out of town, but fear not, he still has reviews. As a matter of fact, you're getting 2 editions of AJ's Movie Reviews in a long weekend. You're going to have a pre-taped one on Friday for normal, a brand new Versus that Sunday, and which is one we've been promising for a long time, which we're finally delivering on. And on Monday, actually, will be the reviews of Home and Get Hard, so that's coming. So that being said, thank you guys and girls out there for watching, and AJ, any parting words?